On this Father's Day, Pastor Seth explores what it means to be a man, the nature of manhood, the difference between real and counterfeit manhood, the nature of masculinity, and how it differs from manhood, and the effect of manhood on responsibilities and relationships. So let's dig in.
What does it mean to be a man? Some of this touches on being a father. Some of it touches on being a husband. Some of it just touches on being a man. For about the last 25 years, the human race has had to ponder a question that for the first however many thousands of years we lived, we never had to ponder. And that is, what does it mean to be a man? Because for thousands of years, most of through my adult time, maleness was maleness and femaleness was femaleness. Gender was just a given. It was just apparent. But in the last 20 years, that's become a very slippery slope. For about 50 years, this has not been helped by what we call male bashing. Now, I will be the first to admit that the pendulum in human history has swung way over to the man side. And in some ways, it's finally swinging back this way. My fear is that it's about to go this way. It has already in some sense, in that in some parts of the country, a father in a family is considered an extra. And in some places, he's considered a hindrance. Almost irrelevant in some places. You may, if you follow the news, you may follow that there are children around the world where their parents are genuinely trying to raise a gender-free child and let the child choose their gender. And so the toys and all the little things they give them are gender neutral, and they're waiting to see sort of which direction the child is going to go. And there are some families that I've read their story where the little boy, because he wanted to play with dolls at the first or something like that, they're raising him as a daughter. And some girls who, at the littlest of age, wanted to play with soldiers or cars, they're raising her as a son. In about 12 years or so, maybe not even that long, these children are going to be in an awful predicament. Because gender is not something that's chosen. It's not something that's just sort of tacked on as an option. Gender is something that is embedded in the very soul of every man and every woman. Now, whether people choose to live out of that gender or not, that's a whole different matter and not a topic for today. But gender is something that is just as inescapable as being human or relational. Genesis 1:26, God said, "Let us make human beings in our image to be like us." And here we have the very core in the first chapter of the Bible of some of the most important things for help us understand our world, that God is relational, Father, Son, and Spirit. At the very core of reality is this world is relational. And we are made in His image. Let us make man in our image to be like us. So God created human beings in His own image. In the image of God, He created them male and female. He created them. Now, He's talking here about that which is true down in the depths of our soul. It's a given. Our image is implanted in us. We are relational creatures. We are personal creatures. We have a heart and aspirations and dreams. We have hopes. We are rational creatures, and our aspirations and hopes are linked together with how we think. And how we are also volitional creatures, that we choose to move in directions either supporting our dreams and hopes or sometimes against them, and we are emotional creatures. All of these are tied together as in our image like God. Personal, rational, volitional, emotional, but most of all relational. Now, in the same context, The very next thing that God says to us as human beings is male and female, He created them. Gender is something that is built into your soul. You are hardwired this way. Now, what does male mean? Male and female, He created them. The Hebrew word is the word zakar. And zakar is an interesting word. It means impact. Impact. To make a dent, the idea. Now, the word was used as a noun to describe the king's assistant. And the king's assistant, is his job as zakar was to remember the important things and go and remind the king so that the king can say or do something that makes an impact. That is a zakar. That's the word that's used here to describe something of the male nature. When we're living out of our nature, you're going to see someone who is moving with impact, who's trying to remember what's important and acting or saying something commensurate with that to make a difference. That's zakar. Now, when you come to the New Testament is the Greek word arson, which I think is kind of funny because it's not the same English word arson, with building fires. I watched my brother lose all of his best toys when he was in about 5th grade because they made a fire in our garage at home, and my dad was not happy about that. But there was still something wondrous about standing there at the incinerator watching this flame of toys go up. Anyway, that has nothing to do with arson here. Arson is a word that means to lift and to carry. It implies a certain kind of strength that can pick something up and carry it from one place to another. Now, what is zakar and arson if you put these two together? It's something like this. In a male's nature, there is something in him that wants to and was designed to remember that which is important and to want to lift and carry something, people, in such a way with some strength that requires some strength that makes an impact. What's being described here is not a bodybuilder or somebody who digs ditches all day. Again, it's in the context of Genesis 1:26 and 27. This is primarily relational. This describes how when we are at our best as husbands or fathers or at work or in your neighborhood, people experience you as masculine when you are caught up with something besides yourself. You are trying to remember what is important. You are moving with strength to make an impact, either relationally or with some responsibility that affects people. That's sort of the beginnings part of what we would say about maleness. Now, at the bottom of your handout, a man is strong or masculine when he is moving deeply into another soul with life-changing impact. Now, if you're a dad, that means you're moving towards your children, but you're not just moving towards them physically, but you're trying to move into their heart, to find out what's going on inside of them and what's and their fears and their hopes and their aspirations and how they feel about life. And you're trying to connect at that level inside of who they are. You're a man on the move. You're not passive. You're not waiting for her or him to open up, but you are moving with some strength into the hearts of a person. If you're a husband, the hearts of your kid. If you're a husband, you're trying to do this with your wife. Now let's take another look, another angle on what does it mean to a man. On the inside of your handout, there's an example here of God and how He relates to His people. And you and I as men are to be, in a very small way, but significant way, audio visuals of this is how God relates to us. We're to relate to the people in our world like He does. And I love this particular example. Now let's look at these things. You'll see in our verses 4 things. A man hears, he remembers, he looks, and he acts. These are on the inside of your handout. All right, let's go to Exodus. During that long period, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned in their slavery. They'd been there for about 400 years. And they cried out. Their cry for help, and their cry for help because of their slavery, went up to God. And here is his response. God heard their groaning, not just their outward groaning, but he heard the groaning of their heart inside, their inner world. He remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So he goes back in time 500, 600 years. And he thinks, I promised those three men, those patriarchs, that when this day came, I would act. And I'm keeping on to that promise. So God looked on the Israelites and was concerned about them. He heard, remembered, he looked, and was concerned about them. And let's go to the next verse. Now, in Exodus chapter 3 is the place where God calls Moses. And Moses becomes the key component to deliver the people out of bondage and slavery. So here's the part where God acts. He's now on the move, and he's speaking to Moses. Go and gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and of Jacob, has appeared to me, saying, I have observed you and what has been done to you in Egypt. I promise I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites, a land flowing with milk and honey. Now, let's break that down. The first thing he did was he heard. What did he hear? He heard their groaning. Something inside the heart of the people caught his attention. This is the personal God who's interested in our hearts and what's reverberating there. Second thing, he remembered. What did he remember? He remembered his covenant, his promise that he had made to the patriarchs, that he was going to act. There was coming a day. The third thing is he looked. He looked, meaning he looked and he pondered. He put some thought into this. And then finally he promised to act, and action followed. Now, what does this mean for me as a father or as a husband or in your world, wherever it happens to be, wherever you happen to be with the people in your life? If I'm going to be a man, I want to listen to stories of people in my life, and particularly their inner story. I am on the move. I am probing. I am active. I'm not sitting back passive. But I am interested in your story and the particulars of your story, your past story, your current story. And then secondly, I want to remember, as I hear your story, I want to remember, how did God move towards me? God moved towards me in spite of my rebellion and my cynicism and my unbelief. I didn't want anything to do with him. He came to me even in those days when I thought going to church on Christmas and Easter was plenty, and I was kind of doing him a favor. God continued to move towards me even when I used him to get what I thought I needed and wanted. He overcame every obstacle I put up in his way to still reach out into me and into my heart. I want to remember that. And then, looked. I pondered. I ponder as a man. Now, there are plenty of times where, as I hear the groan of one of my kids or my wife or one of you, and I remember the God who came to me, I really don't know what to say. And I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to relate. Gentlemen, if you feel that way, welcome to the club. And ladies, if your husband is like that, I'm sorry. I wish I could say we were better than that, but we just aren't. You ladies have an amazing ability and are complex in your nature, and you can see things much more clearly like this than we can. We look, and sometimes we just don't see all that much. It's cloudy. We have to ponder and think. What's going on? And what is something I could do to be a blessing to my kids or my wife or my friends? And then what do I need to do to act or to speak or to listen? How can I relate in such a way that I can be a part of a redemptive process or be a blessing to this person. Now, none of those things are native to men. We just don't wake up thinking about, I'm going to pursue the heart of the people in my life today. I'm thinking about breakfast, or what time I have to be at work, or what my projects do. Instead of experiencing genuine manhood like I should then, our typical sort of default is to sort of pursue, without even thinking about it, a counterfeit manhood as we relate to the people in our life. And there are some examples on your handout. Sometimes we offer a quick fix. We're terrible at this. But somehow we think that's appropriate, and that's what you ladies need or what our kids need. Most of the time it's not. Sometimes we relate in being harsh, or we snap in anger. Sometimes we answer a question too quickly. Sometimes we minimize your feeling. Well, you shouldn't feel that way, or I wouldn't feel that way. We remain confused. We give up. We give advice. We defend ourselves and procrastinate. Sometimes we do nothing, frozen in time. We really don't know what to do. We sort of feel like, well, I got to do something, and we're hoping that maybe one of these things will help. Now, these things usually don't help. And when we sort of get our hands slapped, either from our kids or our wife or boss at work or neighbors or friends or whatever, we feel less like a man, and we're now tempted to counterfeit manhood number 2, which is things like porn, adultery, and all kinds of things like that. What is masculinity? Another way of looking at masculinity is other-centered relating. If you want it at its simplest, it's if I'm thinking about you, and I'm trying to relate to you in light of what's going on with you, you're likely to experience me as masculine. At its very simplest. It's not that I have to think about being masculine, being a man on the move, hear, remember, act, all that stuff. The simple is, if I'm just thinking about you, you're going to experience me as masculine. But oftentimes, we're really not thinking all that much about you. We're thinking about ourselves. And when we do, we typically do things like this. As we relate to others, we will strut an accomplishment. I remember joining a Kiwanis club when we first moved here, and it seemed like that was the general purpose of the 14 of us that were starting that club. Was the hidden agenda was everybody was sort of posturing and strutting, sort of showing their stuff about how great their life was. That is not other-centered living. That is self-centered living. Nobody is going to feel masculine around that. Another way we do this is to tell others how to do something. We feel powerful, like we've accomplished something. Or another one is posturing, that keeps someone at a safe distance, hoping that nobody's going to ask me any of the tough questions. Stay shallow in relationships. Talk about the weather. Let's talk about the angels. It's okay to talk about the angels. Exhibit your strength. Display adequacy. Impress with knowledge. Hide your weaknesses. Okay. These are all sort of our go-to. All of these things reflect an effort to protect myself from pain, or to look good, or to feel good. This is counterfeit manhood. This is not masculinity as God designed us to be, on the move, other-centered, for somebody else's benefit, as I relate to them. Another way of thinking about this is masculinity is strength that's moving towards the two big R's in life, relationships and responsibilities. It's on the move. And no matter what hurdles are in front of him and how hard it seems to be sometimes and how often you feel stuck on these things, you're just going to keep getting up and moving again. You're going to get up and move again. You're going to fall. You're going to get up and move again towards the relationships in your life and the responsibilities. No matter how often it's hard or how much you feel like a failure, you just keep moving. Now, when King David was about to die, King Solomon was about to take over as king. And his words at the end of his life to his son are very instructive. This young fellow's about to become king. That's a tough first job. It's not an entry-level job. Here's what he tells him. Be strong and show yourself a man. Now, again, he's not talking about strength to go to the gym or strength to do a triathlon or something like that. He's talking about a strength that is able to handle the rigors of relationships and responsibility by being on the move, not being bowled over by either of those. Now, in the back of your handout, I have to tell you that the first 3 pages of our outline are sort of how are we supposed to be? What does it look like in the ideal? But I have to tell you that as a 62-year-old man, it's not as simple as what I've described. One of my favorite verses in Proverbs is Proverbs 24:16. A righteous man falls 7 times and gets up, but the wicked are overthrown by calamity. There have been, in my life, my adult life, thousands of times where it seems like I screwed up. I didn't say the right thing. Or after the event, then I thought of what I should have said. Or I didn't do the right thing. I really didn't know what to do. I did nothing. Or I was passive. There are plenty of times where I've seen something difficult in front of me that I knew I should tackle, and I just sort of hoped it would go away. And oftentimes those things don't go away. There are plenty of times where I feel like I just keep getting my hand slapped. No matter where I am, no matter what I do, in the world I live in, it's very easy for me to assume I don't think I have what it takes to handle my world in almost any arena of my life where I look, and it seems like most of my world is sort of confirming that message. This is what the inner world of a man looks like. And it's easy to feel like a failure. It's easy to feel very frustrated in this world. Oftentimes, men deal with a sense of futility. I thought I had this taken care of, and it popped up again. I thought I had this taken care of, it popped up again. I thought we were through this, and here we are again. No matter how hard I try, I can't seem to... This is sort of the whack-a-mole game that never ends. These things just keep popping up over and over again. Now, he doesn't say it's the unrighteous man that falls 7 times. It's the righteous man that falls. That gives me hope. The only difference between the righteous and the unrighteous, the righteous man just keeps getting up. In my head, I have a little metaphor I think about. You remember the old English jousters? The horses and the big blanket over the horse and the armor and the long jousting pole. It often appears to me that the king asked me to be a jouster. And I never jousted before. So I go out to the barn, I get my horse, I put the blanket on the horse, I put on my armor, I've got my jousting pole, and I ride the horse out to where, the little line on the one end, and I look down there, and Goliath is my opponent. And I'm thinking, what am I doing? And the king is standing there, and he's got the flag up like this, and he drops the flag. And I'm sitting there, I think I'd rather take this horse back to the barn. But you can't do that. At that moment, you've got to take your heels and dig them into the side of that horse as hard as you can and bang on the neck of that horse, and you just ride towards Goliath. You sort of know that the guy who's 250 pounds is going to beat the guy who's 180. The guy who's done this a whole lot more than the rookie. But it doesn't matter. You just keep riding your horse right up until that guy, and all of a sudden you get that, and off the back of the horse you go, and your horse goes flying off, and all the crowd, yeah! You cheer for him, and they boo you. You're on the ground, and it's muddy and dirty. You're trying to find, which way is up and which way is down. You have to go find your horse, and the king expects you to go again. You take your horse back to the line, climb up on the horse, you get your jousting pole ready. The king's got his flag. When he drops the flag, you kick the horse as hard as you can. You hit him on the mane, And off you go towards Goliath, sort of knowing you're going to get knocked off your horse again. And there you are, down into the dirt. The next day, it's time to get up and you go and look, and the king has the jousters for the day, and your name is on there again. And the next day, your name is on there again. And the next day, your name is on there again. And the next day, your name is on there. Now, all that matters in the morning is, when I wake up, I'm going to go to the barn and get my horse. And I'm going to put the saddle on him and the bridle. And I'm going to get into my armor, and I get my jousting pole. I'm going to get up on the horse, and I'm going to take that horse to the line to show up. And if the king decides that today he wants me to ride, and he drops that flag, there's only one thing I'm going to do. I'm going to kick my horse as hard as I can, bang him on the mane, and we're going to go charging off, even if I'm not sure I know what it takes to do this jousting thing. And I'm going to do that tomorrow. And I'm going to do that Tuesday. And I'm going to do that Wednesday. And I'm going to do that Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday. It doesn't matter how many times I get knocked off that horse. It doesn't matter how many dents I have in my armor. It doesn't matter how many boos the crowd throws my way. All that matters, when I wake up, I'm going to go find my horse. I'm going to put a saddle on him and a bridle and put my armor on and walk that horse out to the line. And if the king decides today that I'm on the slate and he drops that flag, all I'm going to do is kick that horse for all I'm worth, and off we go. This is what it means to be a man. This is what it's like to be a man. If you're surprised by this, if you're easily discouraged about this, men, this should come as no surprise to you. Hopefully, this may actually be an encouragement to you, because you may think, maybe I'm not the only one here. Now, Jeremiah 33:8 says, God says to the people who have utterly failed. They are at the bottom of the bottom that they can be. They have lost the city of Jerusalem. They have been overrun. God says to these people, I will cleanse them from all the guilt of their sin against me. I will forgive all the guilt of their sin and rebellion against me. No matter how big our failure may be in our eyes, God always has the last word on cleansing and forgiving. Tomorrow comes. There's a horse in the barn. All I need to do is find my horse in the morning. There's never a time where God says, you just suck at riding so bad and suck at fighting so bad. You're going to be the clown jester. That's not how it is. Every day, if you wake up in the morning, there's a horse in your barn. You go saddle him up. Then, verse 9, this city shall be to me a name of joy. Now, at the time, this city was a place of rubble. Will be a name of joy, a praise and a glory before all the nations of the earth, who shall hear of all the good that I do for them. They shall fear and tremble because of all the good and all the prosperity I provide for it. Now, what God can envision and what he's trying to help the people see is you look around, you see rubble now, not one stone on another. But I see a day when children are playing at the park again. And there's laughter in the streets. And the guy with the snow cone machine is coming down the street. And your kids are going to be out there playing. He's describing joy and life and peace. All right, let's wrap this up. The last thing in your handout. If I were to summarize what the Bible says about manhood in a sentence, this is how I would describe it. Men were made to mirror God's penetrating and powerful love by moving deeply into another's soul with life-changing impact.
We invite you to come worship with us every Sunday at 9:30 in Irvine, California. And you can visit our website at pacificchurch.com to learn more about upcoming sermon series and our church family.